Hey guys, it's History Behind the Warrior and welcome to another Soul Calibur 6 video. Now, the next installment in this series 5 or so weeks away now, there's no doubt in my mind that there most certainly some DLC plans that are currently going on in the works, which does always mean the possibility of returning characters that aren't on the roster right now, especially with the apparent leak where Hwang, Lizardman and Raphael will be filling up the remaining slots on the roster. So that begs the questions of what characters do we know could still make it into the game as DLC. So today I'll be taking the most recent character poll, and I'll actually be going down the list talking about each of the characters that haven't already appeared on the roster and rating them on a scale of 1 to 10 when it comes to the chances of them actually being in the game, with 1 being no, 10 being yes, and 5 being a maybe. Anyway, without any further ado, let's actually talk about the characters we could see possibly return as DLC for Soul Calibur 6. Now, I do want you to all remember that whilst I go from character to character, it will be my own opinion, and of course I will address the points of each different character we do have here, so it'll be a good way of analysing the chances of a certain character returning. Anyway, without any further ado, let's get right on to the video. Now, a large majority of the characters that are actually at the top of this character poll have already been confirmed for the game, so I'll be going straight to the characters that haven't already been confirmed. So let's start off talking about Cassandra. Now, Cassandra most definitely does have a notable fan base in the series, having deep ties to Sophia and actually being pretty damn involved with her character art. I will say that Cassandra's chances of making it in as DLC is rather high. That and the fact that the story takes place between the first Soul Calibur game and the second Soul Calibur game, and Cassandra debuts in Soul Calibur 2, the likelihood of her appearing in this game is that much higher. On top of that, although she might have some similarities to Sophia, in terms of gameplay they approach a match in a very different style, with Cassandra having a very upfront in-your-face playstyle, whereas Sophia is much more tactical in the sense that she'll play a waiting game and have you overstep your boundaries so that way she can punish you to a great degree. And this in many ways actually does reflect their own personalities. So despite sharing a shield and sword, in terms of gameplay they approach a match in different ways, much like let's say Siegfried and Nightmare. They have a very similar moveset but do approach matchups in a different way. So if I was going to rate Cassandra on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd say it's an 8 because of her debut in Soul Calibur 2, as Sophia's family is pretty important to the Soul Calibur storyline, as she was one of the individuals that helped defeat Cervantes in the original Soul Edge game, and her children would later become the protagonists of Soul Calibur 5. Plus, from this character poll we can tell that she is popular. So yes, I believe her chances of making it in as DLC are rather high. Now, the next character we do have here is Amy. She's surprisingly much higher up on this list than her counterpart Raphael. I guess you gotta get some lolly love in here somewhere. Now, Amy's pretty integral to Raphael's story arc, as she does provide a lot of help for him. However, like I mentioned, this game takes place before the events of Soul Calibur 2, so Raphael at this point might have not even met Amy, and from the leaks we already know that we're getting Raphael in this game. Now, if we're just looking outside of the Soul Calibur lore, Amy isn't a playable character up until the third Soul Calibur game, but with the inclusion of characters like Zuslamel here, it does seem like there is indeed a possibility of her being playable in it. However, in saying that, unlike Cassandra and Sophia, Amy does share a lot of similar moves with Raphael, and with fighting games being peddled more into the esports scene, they may not want too many characters that function in a similar fashion, with the only exception right now in the game being Nightmare and Siegfried, as they have been pretty integral to the main plot. So again, I'll rate her on a scale of 1 to 10, and I would say it's most likely a 4. It's a maybe, but I wouldn't hold my breath for it. We already have Raphael in the game, so if she was going to appear in this game, I believe it would most likely be under the Viola persona. So it's a great way of kind of including the character without having someone that may share a moveset that's very similar to someone else's on the roster. Now, our next character is Young Song. Now, this is going to be a very interesting one for me to tackle, because Young Song's first appearance is in Soul Calibur 2. On top of this, he's actually more popular than Hwang, so it doesn't in fact surprise me that he's seemingly not on the main roster of the game, especially when his cousin Mina Song has actually made it. But the only reason why I think this is the case is due to story purposes. During the events of Soul Calibur 1, Hwang is forced to chase after Mina Song and bring her back home to Korea, and Young Song at this point may have not caught word of Soul Edge, so he couldn't have gone off to pursue it. Plus, Hwang is notably much older than Young Song, and Young Song did actually idolize him for a very long amount of time. So if we're taking into account story stuff, then it does make a little bit more sense. However, due to his popularity, it seems really weird that according to the rumors, Hwang has been picked over Young Song. So if I were to rate him on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd say it's a 5, as it most certainly does seem like he is rather popular. Now, our next character is none other than the beautiful Sitka. Now, I myself personally believe that Sitka has an extremely high chance of making it into the game. Much like Zuslamel, she did make her debut in Soul Calibur 3, and although she isn't that integral to the main story storyline of the series, she's most certainly had a very unique and appealing character design, as well as an extremely flashy and cool moveset, something Patroclus would pick up during the climax of Soul Calibur 5. Now what I also believe helps put her over the other characters I've talked about so far as a chance of becoming a DLC character is that no one else on the roster right now emulates her moveset, so she by all intents and purposes would be unique to the game. So I can't help but feel that Setsuka's chances of becoming DLCs almost guaranteed, especially when you have characters like Tira and Zoslamel from Soul Calibur 3 on the roster. So if I were to rate her on a scale of 1 to 10, I can't help but feel it's a 9 here. She has an appealing fighting style and design and would be unique to the roster because of it. Plus, she is a popular character, so it's not like she's outside the realm of possibility to most certainly make a comeback. Now our next character is someone who I've briefly talked about already, but did say she was one of the good and popular new additions to the Soul Calibur 5, Viola. Now I'm not going to rehash everything I've already said about Amy, but I feel like her chances of making it into Soul Calibur 6 are slightly higher than Amy's, and I know that might seem a little bit ludicrous, but do hear me out. For one, in terms of gameplay, Viola would be very unique to the game. No one else in the series is able to emulate her fighting style. It was new, original, and very unique to Soul Calibur 5, so in that instance she'd be a unique and great addition to the game. Now I'm saying that she doesn't necessarily fit into this game's storyline too well, as the Viola character only appears in Soul Calibur 5, but much later down the timeline. However, it may be one of those instances where a DLC character isn't necessarily shackled down by their lore. And when you have a game series like Soul Calibur, which is filled with many different guest characters, it's hard to still not see this idea as a possibility. So for the sole fact that she is popular amongst fans, and the fact that she would be unique in terms of gameplay, I'm going to give her a 6 out of 10, and I genuinely would like to see her return in some way, shape and form. Now our next character is a latecomer to the series, and it's none other than Hilda. Now in comparison to all of the other characters I have mentioned here, Hilda debuts in Soul Calibur 4, so she does appear in the series very late, and it's actually pretty young when she debuts, as she is about 18 years old. But in saying that, apparently Hilda was popular enough to make it into Soul Calibur 5, a game that was infamous for replacing many of the fan favorites. Now in saying that, Hilda is indeed quite unique when it comes to gameplay, as there's no one in the entire series that emulates her spear and sword style, something that does allow her to stand out from the crowd, and something that is most certainly absent in Soul Calibur 6 right now. So it does make her chances of actually appearing in the game much more viable. Now if I were to rate her on a scale of 1 to 10, I feel like it would be a 5. I'm definitely quite split in the middle here, as I believe her gameplay allows her to be unique enough to make it into the game, but when you compare her to some of the other OGs that could end up being DLC, it just feels like she'd most likely come up a little bit short. Hopefully I'm wrong about this and we get her in some form of way, but that's all I have to say about Hilda for now. Now our next character is another character from Soul Calibur 5, and it's the Wolf Summoning Zwei. Now Zwei was extremely unique to Soul Calibur 5, and one of the very few characters that fans actually really liked. His character design was unique and really did allow him to fit into the world's aesthetics very well. So when we take into consideration a lot of the reception characters got in Soul Calibur 5 that were new, it's nice to see that Zwei along with Viola were one of those characters that really did stand out from the crowd. Plus they weren't shackled by the whole, hey let's replace a fan favorite with a new character and paste them over with someone else's moveset. But now back onto the topic of Zwei, the character's a fan favorite. He has a stylish moveset, he fits into the game's aesthetic very well, and although he may not be as popular as some of the OGs of the series, he's still kind of held up in a high regard, and in terms of gameplay he would be very unique to Soul Calibur 6, because no one in Soul Calibur 6 has a fighting style that even emulates what he can do. Now if I were to rate him on a scale of 1 to 10, I am going to have to say it's a 5, as he does appear much later on in the series, but I do see him being quite popular enough for him to return, especially if he can break away from the shackles of being tied down by the lore. Now our next character is Natsu. Now this one kind of speaks for itself. She was the individual that inherited Tucky's moveset in Soul Calibur 5 and was part of the new generation of characters. So as you would imagine, not many people were too happy with her replacing an OG of the series. Now although her design wasn't as generic as some of the other new characters they had introduced, Natsu wasn't a character that any of the fans really asked for. So as you would expect, she's not really that popular, especially in comparison to her Tucky counterpart. Plus her appearance in Soul Calibur 6 wouldn't really make any sense, and the fact that Soul Calibur 6 takes place way before the events of 5, I just don't see her chances of making it into the game being high at all, especially when her master's already in, and is clearly a character that fans love a lot more in comparison to Natsu. So if I were to rate her on a scale of 1 to 10, it would most likely be a 2, if not so a 1. Now next we have Pyrrha. I'm just gonna say right out the gate, it's a 1. So Theety is already in game. At the time Soul Calibur 6 does happen, Pyrrha and Patroclus are most likely children, and I believe that many of us want to forget the really weird incestuous undertones that Soul Calibur 5's story really did have. So because of that, let's just forget about Pyrrha. Plus Pyrrha's entire moveset is basically a mishmash of Cassandra's and Sophitia's moveset, and I think it's quite safe to say that she's universally disliked by the fanbase. That and her really annoying brother Patroclus, who we'll get onto in a bit. Now our next character is Ziba, the child of Shanghua and Keelek. Now there's not really much to say about Ziba, as honestly everything I've kind of said about Natsu and Pyrrha kind of applies to him. He's a new generation character that no one necessarily had asked for. His involvement in the game shifted Keelek over into a random character, in a very literal sense of the word, and of course his appearance wouldn't really make any sense in this game considering the massive time difference. Now I wouldn't say Ziba is exactly terrible, as I actually quite like his character design, but over the other options we already do have in game, and with Keelek already being confirmed, the chances of Ziba making it in is slim to none, so I am going to have to give him a 1. Now I'm going to group the next two characters together, as I have the same feelings about the pair of them, and that will be Rock and Lilong. Now Rock and Lilong are OGs of the series. Having appeared in Soul Edge before Soul Calibur, they've definitely made a mark on the series, and have influenced it in many different ways. But that is actually also why I think their chances of making it into Soul Calibur 6 aren't particularly high. You see, if we're just going from a lore standpoint, Astaroth's body, build and moveset is very heavily based on Rock, as really Rock was used as a template for Astaroth's creation, so a lot of moves that Astaroth has in game has been stuff he has inherited from Rock. Lilong on the other hand was the individual who taught Maxi how to use his nunchucks, and thus his moveset was transferred over to Maxi when the series transitioned from Soul Edge to Soul Calibur. So because of that, I don't think their chances of actually making it into Soul Calibur 6 as DLC are particularly too high, especially when you already have characters that are on the roster that have inherited their movesets. So for the pair of them, I'm going to give them a 3 out of 10, mostly because they aren't as popular as some of the other characters, and there are individuals who have inherited their playstyle, so because of that I don't believe that their chances are very high at all. Now our next character is Gore, which I'm quite surprised to be so low on this list here. Now Gore is a very integral part to the Soul Calibur series, however in terms of lore and really where this game actually takes place, Gore would still have been dead around this time, as he only does resurface during the events of Soul Calibur 4, so in terms of story he is somewhat dead. Now in saying that, Gore had one of the most unique movesets in the Soul Calibur series, being able to wield Soul Edge and Soul Calibur at the same time, as well as his ability to manifest weapons from his body. He was certainly an individual that was very unique to the game. However, it does seem like this idea has been passed over to a newcomer in the series, that being Aswell. Now although he doesn't wield Soul Calibur and Soul Edge at the same time, it's very clear that the mage is tied to both weapons in some way, shape and form. We don't know the exact details right now, but his ability, much like Gore, to manifest and create weapons out of thin air will most likely make Gore's chances of making it into Soul Calibur 6 very slim. So again, if I were to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd say it's a 3 or a 4. Now our next character is Dampierre, 1 out of 10. Talking about this character isn't really worth my time. He's a late comer to the series and only really exists for comedic relief, because he's that much of a joke. Okay, we're on to Lyzia. Now again, she is a new generation character that was introduced to Soul Calibur 5, so everything I need to say about the newish characters has already been said and can really be applied to her here. Now honestly, I find her probably the most bland of the new characters to the series, and with the inclusion of her mother Shanghua being in the game, I really don't see her turning up at any point, because in SC5 she does inherit Shanghua's moveset. So again, much like many of the other new generation characters, it's a 3 out of 10. Now the next character is Abyss. Now Abyss I do think is really cool in design and in concept, however his normal counterpart Zuslamel is already in game, and Zuslamel himself in terms of moveset actually inherits a number of Abyss's exclusive moves, especially when he's in his soul charge. Plus it's already been shown off in the story trailer that the main big bad and antagonist will be Inferno, and the story does take place between Soul Calibur 1 and 2, and Abyss makes his first appearance in the third Soul Calibur game. So again, if there's someone else that just has a similar moveset as him, and he doesn't appear till way later in the story, and is only a boss character that's appeared in one game, I just don't feel like Abyss will make the cut, although I do kind of hope that he is a secret boss in the arcade mode. That would be a cool, nice little addition. So in that instance, it's a 2 out of 10. Now more or less at the end of this character poll, and it's pretty safe to say that I can group all these characters together: Charade, Orkadan, Elysium, and Edgemaster. All characters that do have their moveset randomized between rounds. And I will say for the most part, we'll fighting games being kind of peddled more towards an esports scene, I just don't see individuals like this existing in fighting games for much longer, with Tekken 7 being a perfect example of one of the games that have in fact steered away from this. So I believe that the same rule is going to be applied here, and I don't believe that we're going to see any of these characters return in-game. However, I do feel like they will make small short cameos in other characters' story arcs, but that for the most part covers all of the characters that I believe will be viable for DLC. I hope you've enjoyed this video, guys. It has most certainly been a very long one. I've been working on this video for quite some time now, and I do apologize for it coming out rather late, but I definitely wanted to take my time with making this one. Anywho, I hope you do enjoy it, and hope it does point out the likelihood of how you feel about particular characters making it onto the roster. Now down in the comments below, please do let me know what characters for Soul Calibur 6 Season Pass would make it the ideal Season Pass for you personally, regardless of lore, gameplay and moveset. I'm just interested what everyone has to say, as understandably we all do have favourites naturally, so please do comment down below. I'll be doing a recap and everything you need to know about Soul Calibur 6 story, and I'll be talking about characters that could possibly make it in as guest DLC for Soul Calibur 6's Season Pass, as I have been hearing many suggestions around the fan base. Anyway, that wraps it up for this video, guys. I do hope you enjoyed it. Now before this video wraps up, if possible, let's try getting it to about 500 likes. It's a great way of helping out this channel since YouTube's ad system is broken as hell. By giving it a thumbs up, it helps out a ton. And if you want to go the extra step, we also have a Patreon set up, and a link for it will be down in the description below. Anyway guys, as always, please comment, like, subscribe and share this video with everyone you know. Please take care, and I'll see you all next time.